The sun filtered softly through the fresh bloom of spring, washing the schoolyard of Elmridge Academy in golden light. The yellow bus gleamed in the morning sun, newly waxed, a symbol of safety and excitement. Students in navy blue uniforms lined up for their long-awaited graduation trip, smiles bright, laughter echoing, the last memory anyone would ever have of them. 11 students, all final-year seniors, and one faculty member stood in front of the bus for a photograph. In the center stood Mila Durant, her hair pulled into a neat braid, a leather satchel pressed close to her. She had the kind of beauty that wasn't loud, but lingered like the melody of a piano piece long after the last note. Mila was quiet, observant, with calloused fingers from hours spent playing Debussy in the music room. Next to her stood Rhett Lawson, tall, slightly aloof, with that strange mix of maturity and mystery. He had transferred to Elmridge just 9 months ago, always with a notebook in his jacket and headphones around his neck. He rarely smiled, but when he did, it was for Mila. Behind them, Mr. Auden Shaw, the literature teacher and chaperone for the trip, placed a hand on the shoulder of a student. His smile was polished, but his eyes were unreadable, like he knew something the others didn't. He was always a bit too charming, a little too interested in off-grid literature and ancient belief systems. The parents liked him. The students weren't so sure. The bus doors folded open with a hiss. The driver, a substitute no one really knew, gave a casual wave and began stowing luggage. Mila hesitated at the steps. Her eyes flicked to the woods just beyond the fence, to a strange bird perched on a low branch, staring at her without blinking. "You all right?" Rhett asked, quietly behind her. Mila nodded barely. "I had a dream last night," she whispered. "We were in the forest, but it was upside down." Rhett gave her a look, half amused, half uneasy. "You always have the weirdest dreams." She stepped up. "I know, but this one felt like it remembered me." They took their seats mid-row. The rest of the students filed in bright, loud, some chewing gum, others listening to CDs. There was Kasia Lim, loud and full of wild ideas. Jonah Bellamy, the prankster. Evia Blake, Mila's roommate and dearest friend. As the engine roared to life, a parent's camcorder zoomed in for one last moment. The footage would later be reviewed by authorities frame by frame, smiles, hands waving, lips saying goodbye. Mila's fingers lightly touched the window glass as they pulled away. That was the last moment the world saw them. The destination was a secluded camping ground in Black Hollow Forest, a place whispered about in local legends. The parents had expressed concern, but Auden Shaw insisted it was safe. "We're shaping memories, not just graduates," he had said during the parent meeting. The school board approved it with little pushback. The road to Black Hollow twisted deeper into wilderness. Paved roads gave way to gravel, gravel to dirt, and dirt to silence. No phone signals, no road signs, only the slow hum of tires and the occasional distant rustling of trees. At 2:14 p.m., Mila wrote her last known journal entry in her leather notebook. "Trees bend differently here, like they're listening or waiting." By evening, fog had begun to curl over the tree lines like breath from an unseen mouth. Mr. Shaw announced they were just a few miles from the site. No one seemed worried. In fact, some students sang campfire songs as the bus rolled forward. Mila, though, felt a chill. Across the aisle, Rhett leaned over. "Can I tell you something?" he asked. She nodded. "I don't think I transferred by accident," he said. "This place, this trip, I think I was meant to come." "What do you mean?" "I think something's going to happen. And I think you're the only one who'll remember it clearly." Before she could answer, the bus lurched sharply to the right. Students screamed. The driver cursed. The lights inside flickered. Then silence. Outside, the fog had thickened. There were no visible landmarks, no signs of civilization, only trees. Miles and miles of trees. Mr. Shaw stood, calmly. "It's all right," he said. "We're here. Just a bit off course." "Where's the trail?" asked Jonah, peering out the window. "There's no trail," Kasia whispered. "It's all just forest." The headlights dimmed. A crow cawed above them. Then, from deep within the fog, the sound of something walking, heavy, slow, and deliberate. Mila clutched her satchel. She looked back at Rhett, whose eyes were now fixed outside. He didn't look confused or scared. He looked like he had been waiting for this. The forest was still, but it was not quiet. The low hum of drone blades cut through the air above Black Hollow, maneuvering between the moss-draped branches and long-forgotten trails. Beneath the thick canopy, sunlight barely filtered through, casting everything in a pale green haze. From the monitor in his camper van, Logan Mercer, a local drone hobbyist and former forestry student, leaned forward. "There," he whispered, on screen. A shape. Rusted metal. Curved roof. Yellow paint, now almost entirely swallowed by ivy and rust. Logan's heart skipped. A bus. In the middle of nowhere, he pulled up topographic maps, squinted at the screen. That shouldn't be there. There were no access roads, no campsites, no ranger towers. Just untouched wilderness. He marked the coordinates, locked the drone in hover, and packed a bag. By noon, Logan had reached the edge of where the drone had hovered. It took him another hour on foot, carving through overgrowth with a machete. The woods felt wrong, thick with silence, the kind that pressed against your ears and lungs. And then he saw it, the bus. Old, broken, tilted slightly to one side where the ground had sunk beneath it. Its paint peeled like dried skin, windows shattered, moss growing up from inside. A vine curled around the rear mirror like it was trying to pull the whole thing under the earth. Elmridge Academy was still faintly visible across the side in ghostly lettering. Logan's breath caught. He circled it slowly. The emergency door was rotted shut. The main doors were wedged with rust. It took 3 tries and a deep shove to force it open. The sound loud and painful in the silence. The stench hit him immediately. Mildew. Decay. Inside. The bus was a frozen grave. School bags lay slumped across seats, their zippers rusted. A flute case snapped open. A sketchbook swollen with moisture. A blue blazer, the Elmridge crest still visible, dangled from a hook like a forgotten ghost. On the floor near the back, he saw a single penny loafer, small, feminine, coated in green fuzz, and then he saw it. Blood. A dried smear across the back seat, black now with age. Finger streaks along the window like someone had clawed for escape. Stepped deeper in. That's when he noticed the dented floorboard near the driver's seat. Something wedged underneath. He knelt and pulled it free. A cassette recorder, still intact somehow. A cracked label in neat handwriting. Trip to Black Hollow, Mila. Authorities swarmed the site within hours. For the first time in 28 years, the Elmridge 11 mystery returned to national headlines. The discovery was a media wildfire. Local news stations looped the 1997 graduation day video, the smiling teens. The teacher, the bus pulling away. It had become iconic. A whole generation had grown up hearing rumors about the Black Hollow disappearances, and now the wreckage was real. The initial forensic sweep revealed no sign of forced entry or crash damage. The tires were deflated, not blown. The steering wheel was still intact. And inside the chassis, investigators found 4 complete human skeletons, partially clothed in student uniforms. DNA confirmation was pending, but families began receiving calls. Mila Durant's mother, Ellen hadn't left her home in years. Her piano sat untouched. Her daughter's shoes still placed neatly beside the door. When her landline rang and a detective said the words, "We found the bus," she didn't respond, not at first. Then she stood up and walked to Mella's room for the first time in almost a decade. She opened the closet. The scent of lavender, dust, and old paper made her knees buckle. Pinned inside the door was a photograph, one she hadn't remembered seeing before. It was a group shot, the same one taken on graduation day, but something was off. The trees in the background weren't trees. They were figures. Too tall, too thin, too many joints. Watching she dropped the photo. Back in the forensic lab, investigators played the recovered cassette tape. At first, static. Then footsteps, wind, laughter. A voice Millis talking about the forest. Then a sudden shriek. Cut to silence. Then something else. A voice. Male. Calm. Chanting in a language they couldn't place. And at the very end, a whisper. Almost inaudible. We didn't get lost. We were taken. 1 week later, another development rocked the case. In a rural field 30 miles from Black Hollow, a woman was found walking barefoot, her clothes tattered, her face blank. She was dehydrated, sunburnt, and unresponsive. No ID, no memory. When they ran her fingerprints, the result shocked everyone. Mella Durant. She hadn't aged a day. June 9, 2025, Hopeburn Medical Facility, Pennsylvania. Mella Durant sat motionless in the hospital room, wrapped in a pale gray blanket, her eyes fixed on something only she could see. Her hair was long, tangled with brambles, and her face, unaged since 1997, was impossibly smooth, as if time had folded around her and left her untouched. Doctors whispered in corners. Nurses tiptoed. News vans lined the street outside the facility, like vultures circling a miracle or a curse. Inside the observation room, Detective Elena Marlowe leaned over the one-way glass, arms crossed tightly. "That's her?" she asked softly. Dr. Winslow, the psychiatrist assigned to Milla's case, nodded. "DNA is an exact match. Dental, too. And we found her fingerprints on the recorder from the bus." Elena didn't answer. She couldn't. Her brain was busy rewriting reality to make space for the impossible. How is she still 17? She finally whispered. "That," Winslow exhaled, "is the wrong question. The real one is, where has she been and who let her go?" That night, Milla stirred. Not because of the noise or lights or machines, but because something had changed in the air. Her eyes fluttered open. She was not alone. A shadow stretched across the room, thin, tall, unnatural. It moved without sound, without weight. Milla blinked, tears welling instantly. Her fingers reached for the small notebook tucked beneath her pillow. The nurses hadn't noticed it yet. She held it close. "Please," she whispered to the darkness. "Not yet. I haven't told them." The shadow withdrew. The next morning, Detective Marlowe entered the room with slow, cautious steps. Mella didn't look up at first. She was sketching. "Always sketching." "Milla," Marlowe said gently, placing down a photograph on the table. "Do you know who this is?" Milla's eyes fell to the image. A group of teenagers in navy uniforms, sunlight, a bright yellow bus. And in the center, her own face. "I remember the photo," Milla said softly, "but not the moment." Marlowe watched her carefully. "Can you tell me where you've been?" "For the last 28 years? Milla looked up then. Her eyes were wide, glassy. "You wouldn't believe me. Try me." She swallowed hard, trembling. "We never got lost. That's what everyone thought. That we got lost, crashed, froze to death. But that's not what happened." She turned the sketchbook toward Marlowe. On the page was a drawing of a clearing in the woods. 12 people stood. In a circle, hands joined. In the center, something rose from the ground, twisted, root-like, faceless. There was a man, Mila said, voice barely audible. He wore gray robes, but he wasn't a man. Marlowe tensed. A cult? No, Mila said slowly. It wasn't like that. He wasn't preaching. He was watching, judging. Later that evening, Marlowe sat with Ellen Durant, Mila's mother, in the hospital cafeteria. Ellen's hands trembled as she stirred her untouched tea. She looks exactly the same, Ellen whispered. My baby girl. But she doesn't feel like her. Something's missing. She's been through something traumatic, Marlowe replied carefully. No, it's not trauma. It's like part of her is still there, wherever there is. Marlowe didn't respond. But the sketch Mila had made wouldn't leave her mind. 3 days passed. Mila rarely spoke, but she drew constantly. Hundreds of pages. Trees with no leaves, circles made of stones. People wearing masks of bark and moss. And always the black tree. One nurse, curious, asked her about it. Mila's hand froze mid-sketch. She looked up slowly. The tree listens. The nurse laughed nervously. To what? To your thoughts? Mila said. It's how he finds you. The nurse didn't ask again. On the 6th night, Mila had her first nightmare. She screamed until her throat bled. The security camera footage showed her rising from bed, arms outstretched, eyes wide open. She pointed at the window. They're still out there, she screamed. They're waiting for me to come back. I broke the circle. I wasn't supposed to leave. Doctors sedated her. But her notebook was found clutched in her arms, held so tightly they had to pry it from her fingers. On the final page was a drawing of herself standing in the woods, bleeding from the eyes, behind her, the decayed school bus. Inside it, 11 silhouettes, and just behind them, in the tree line, something tall, faceless, and smiling. The next day, Mila was gone. No security alarms triggered. No cameras saw her leave. The only sign she'd been there was her sketchbook, left open on the bed, her final words scribbled across the inside cover. I was the last piece. The circle is whole again. The case, once solved, was now reopened again, and in Black Hollow Forest, a hiker later reported hearing piano music playing faintly through the trees. But when rangers arrived, there was nothing but wind and 12 perfectly arranged rocks in a circle. Asterisk. The town of Elmridge didn't know what to believe anymore. Mila Durant had returned and vanished again in less than a week, untouched by time, haunted by memories, and now gone without a trace. Authorities were baffled. Parents were shattered. Conspiracy forums exploded. But on the 4th night after her disappearance, another name resurfaced. Rhett Lawson. He had vanished along with the others in 1997, presumed dead like the rest. But now, someone claimed to have seen him. The call came from a nurse at an assisted living facility 30 miles from Black Hollow. A man had been admitted 3 days earlier, malnourished, barefoot, and unable to recall his full name. But when asked for an emergency contact, he had muttered something strange. Call Mila. She still remembers the rules. When police arrived, the man was lying in bed, staring blankly at the ceiling. His fingers tapped a steady rhythm on the blanket. 3 taps, pause, 1 tap, pause. 3 again. Detective Elena Marlowe was called in personally. She stepped into the room with quiet urgency, her eyes locking onto the figure beneath the thin hospital sheets. It was him. The jawline had aged. Hair grayed, face worn, but there was no mistaking it. The same boy from the 1997 class photo. The one who had stood beside Mila before the trip. Rhett? She said softly. He blinked once, then turned his head slowly toward her. You're too late, he rasped. That afternoon, Red agreed to speak, but only if they turned off the lights. In the dimmed room, he began to talk, voice hoarse from years of silence. We didn't break down. That's what Mela believed. That's what we all believed. The engine died, yes, but it was called. He called it. The forest chose us long before we entered it. Mr. Shaw knew. He let us in. Told us it was a shortcut to the site, but it wasn't a trail, it was a circle. We reached a clearing, stones, a tree with no leaves, just black bark, pulsing like it breathed. It made us forget how long we'd been there. Hours, days, weeks. Time didn't work right anymore. The others started forgetting names, faces, why we came. Kasia began speaking in tongues. Jonah laughed until he collapsed. Then they came, not humans, not gods either. Shadows with shape but no form. They didn't talk. They showed things, visions. They told us this was an exchange. We were guests. But if we stayed, we had to offer something in return. Elena leaned forward, heart pounding. What kind of offer? Rhett looked her straight in the eye. Memory, emotion, self. Some gave in, some resisted. The ones who resisted didn't stay long. Rhett closed his eyes. His voice cracked. Now. I tried to run, once. Got maybe a mile before everything turned. The forest shifted. The trees weren't in the same place. The sky changed. I ended up back in the clearing. But Mela, she fought harder. She carried the memory of us like it anchored her. She started drawing, hiding those pages from them. That's why they let her go. Or maybe that's why they followed her. I didn't see her again after that night, until now. Outside the hospital, rain had begun to fall. Thick, heavy drops that soaked the earth instantly. Inside Rhett's room. Lights flickered once, then twice. He sat up suddenly, panic rising in his voice. It's starting again. They found her. That means the door's open. Elena froze. What door? The forest doesn't keep things out. It keeps things in. But Mela was the last piece. When she escaped, the balance broke. Now they'll come looking for the rest of us. Later that night, Rhett was found standing in the courtyard barefoot, eyes locked on the distant tree line beyond the fence. He whispered just one thing before collapsing. He remembers me. In Mila's childhood home, Ellen Durant returned from the hospital to find the front door wide open. Nothing stolen, nothing broken. Only one thing had changed. Mila's childhood sketchbook had been placed in the center of her bed. Its final page, newly added, was a charcoal drawing. A bus, burning, but not in flames and vines. And inside, a face pressed against the window. Not Mela's, not Rhett's. It was Elena. Marlowe. Detective Elena Marlowe hadn't slept in 2 days. Rhett Lawson was sedated under heavy watch after his breakdown in the hospital courtyard. Mila Durant remained missing. And now somehow, Elena's own face had appeared in a child's sketchbook that hadn't been touched in nearly 3 decades. It wasn't possible. It wasn't supposed to be possible. Yet the drawing was unmistakably her. Same eyes. Same scar above the right brow. Same silver necklace she hadn't taken off in 10 years. Something had seen her. Something had drawn her. And now it wanted her closer. 6:12 a.m. Elena stood at the edge of Black Hollow, the forest thick and humid after the storm. The sun hadn't risen above the trees yet, but she couldn't wait. She needed to see the bus site for herself, alone. She hiked 5 miles into the brush with only a flashlight and the coordinates logged from the original drone footage. The deeper she went, the more unnatural the world began to feel. The trees didn't grow straight. They twisted around each other like they were whispering. No birds, no bugs. Just wind, But even that seemed wrong, like it exhaled. Not blue dot by the 6th mile, the air was wet. Not with rain. With memory, she swore she could smell old perfume, hear faint giggling, taste metal in her mouth. Then she saw a dot, not the bus, the clearing. Exactly as Mila had drawn it. A perfect circle of stones, spaced evenly, worn with age. And in the center, a tree, black bark. No leaves, taller than it should be, with a trunk that split like veins. It pulsed, actually pulsed. Elena staggered forward, drawn to it like it was calling her by name. That's when she noticed the scratches along the stones, fingernail marks, and a name carved over and over into the ground. Mila, Mila. Elena turned to leave. That's when she saw the figure. A girl, barefoot, hair long and tangled. Mila standing at the edge of the clearing, watching her. Mila. Elena stepped toward her, but Mila didn't move. I broke the circle, Mila whispered. That's why it's awake again. Come with me, Elena said. We can fix this. We can tell people. Mila shook her head slowly. You can't fix what was promised. We made a deal. All of us, even if we didn't mean to. Elena's throat tightened. What kind of deal? Mila stepped into the clearing. It fed on us. Memory, love, pain. Every feeling we had, it swallowed them and gave us silence in return. You think we died, but we didn't. We just stopped being who we were. And Rhett? The others? Some gave in. Some were taken. Rhett ran, but he left me there. I stayed behind because I remembered who I was. That made me the last. Mila stepped closer, her voice suddenly low. And now it needs another. Elena stepped back. No. But something cold crept up her spine. She looked down. The grass beneath her feet had turned black. The ground was moving. Roots, tiny and slick, wrapping around her boots like fingers. She screamed, pulling herself back, tripping over a stone. She fell to her knees. Mila knelt beside her. I tried to stop it, she whispered, tears streaking down her face. But I came back too late. It saw you through me. Elena gritted her teeth, digging at the roots with her hands. You don't have to do this. I'm not doing it, Mila said. The forest chooses. When Elena awoke, she was in the hospital. Mud on her hands, dirt under her fingernails. But no scratches, no bruises, just a circle of ash burned into the bottom of her boots and a slip of paper under her pillow. A sketch, charcoal, a new drawing, Rhett Lawson. Hanging from a tree, eyes open, mouth silent. And behind him, the black tree. That same day, an officer entered Rhett's room to deliver medication. He found it empty. No broken window. No security alert. No signs of struggle. Just a smear of black sap across the wall. And a sentence etched into the mirror, the forest remembers who runs. Later that evening, Marlowe received a USB drive in an unmarked envelope. She plugged it into her laptop. Only one file. An audio recording. Crackling, broken, but familiar. Mila's voice. If you're hearing this, then it's already too late. Don't go back to the clearing. Don't follow me. Don't listen to the wind. It isn't wind, and whatever you do, never break the circle again. Asterisk, the news had moved on. A week had passed since Detective Elena Marlowe was found unconscious at the edge of Black Hollow Forest. Official reports called it exhaustion-induced collapse. The media speculated about cults, exposure, even psychological delusion. The missing students of 1997 became tabloid folklore, again resurfacing only when ratings dipped. But Elena knew better. She sat alone in her apartment, blinds drawn, a single lamp casting shadows across the wall. Mila's last audio recording. looped on her laptop over and over like a prayer or a curse. Don't follow me. Don't listen to the wind. It isn't wind. Elena hadn't slept in 3 nights. Not really. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the black tree. Every time she blinked, she saw Mila barefoot, eyes hollow, mouth whispering things the world wasn't meant to hear. She had gone to Black Hollow looking for closure. Instead, she brought something back. That morning, she returned to Elmridge. Hi. The school had been converted into a community center years ago. Most of the staff had retired. The halls were quiet, but the memories hung in the air like cobwebs, especially near the memorial. A row of bronze plaques lined the back wall of the gymnasium. Names etched in neat rows beneath the words, Class of 1997, lost but never forgotten. 11 names. One teacher, but someone had scratched a 12th name into the wall beneath them, Elena Marlowe. She stared at it for a long time, then ran her fingers across the rough letters. The scratching was fresh. Suddenly, a flicker of motion caught her eye just beyond the gym's double doors. A shadow moved past. Elena turned slowly, heart hammering. Mila? No reply. She stepped out into the hallway. Empty, except there was a faint melody echoing down the corridor. A piano, soft, familiar. Claire de Lune. It had been Mila's recital piece. Elena followed the sound to the old music room. Dust choked the air and cracked instruments lined the walls. But the grand piano in the center gleamed polished, untouched, and seated at it. Rhett Lawson. He looked older now, thinner, like the forest had finally let time catch up. But his eyes were the tear that... Same. You're not real? Elena whispered. Rhett didn't stop playing. Neither are you. Not anymore. She took a step forward. You disappeared. No, he said softly. I was taken. Then I was released, like you. Elena froze. I didn't agree to anything. He lifted his fingers from the keys. You don't have to agree. You just have to listen long enough. What does that mean? Rhett stood. It's waking up again. You brought it too close. You broke the distance it needs to sleep. You mean the forest? Rhett stepped closer, his voice now a whisper. It's not a forest. It's a boundary. Between what's seen and what waits. We didn't vanish. We were repurposed. She shook her head. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to. It just needs another circle. He pulled something from his coat. Mila's sketchbook. But the pages were blank now. Elena opened it, flipping wildly. No drawings. No names. No memories. Just a sentence written over and over on the last page. Only one was meant to return. Her breath caught. Rhett stepped back into the shadows. I shouldn't have come back, he said quietly. But I had to warn you. Warn? Me of what? That it already chose you. You just haven't accepted it yet. Then he was gone. That night, Elena returned to her apartment to find the door ajar. She entered slowly, flashlight drawn. Inside. Nothing was touched. Except the floor. 12 stones arranged in a perfect circle in the middle of her living room, and at its center, her police badge. She dropped to her knees. Trembling, something moved. Behind her, a voice Mila's whispered gently, You should have never left the clearing. 6 months later, the town of Elmridge barely speaks of the investigation anymore. Mila Durant remains missing. Rhett Lawson's name isn't in any official record. Detective Elena Marlowe is presumed dead, though no body was ever found, but sometimes deep. In the woods of Black Hollow, hikers report hearing music, a soft piano playing through the trees, and in certain clearings, they find sketches pinned to tree trunks drawn in charcoal. A school bus, a black tree, a circle of stones. And always, one new face, yours.